All right, everyone. Viva Frei, Montreal litigator turned YouTuber. Video is going to be a little different today because we are camping on the beautiful St. Lawrence River. I have found 10-15 minutes to sneak away and do this vlog because it has to be done. Rudy Giuliani has been temporarily suspended from the practice of law following basically an ethics complaint against him as a lawyer for things he said during representation of the Trump campaign and during the 2020 election after the election was in. This situation reflects everything that is awful about weaponizing of the practice of law, weaponizing of the ethics process, motivated reasoning within the ethics process, motivated reasoning in general. Now, for those of you who don't know, Giuliani was representing the Trump campaign in multiple lawsuits challenging certain results after the 2020 election. He made some, famous or now infamous public statements in the presence of others and with others who need not be named, but he made some, pretty bold, outlandish at times statements publicly. In court, he made other statements while representing a client and presumably representing the sincere beliefs and interests of that client. He said things about deceased people voting in numbers that varied from 8,000 to 30,000, and a number of other statements which people took issue with, wrongly or rightly, and as a result of which, an ethics complaint was filed against Giuliani. It's the AGC, the Attorney Grievance Committee. During that investigation, the AGC moved to have Giuliani immediately suspended pending the outcome of that investigation and complaint. And the decision to temporarily suspend Giuliani because he poses such an immediate and severe risk to the practice of law was granted by both the lower court and the appellate division of New York, confirming the immediate suspension of Rudy Giuliani from the practice of law in New York, or the suspension of his license, pending the outcome of the investigation in the grievances. And if you read this judgment is motivated reasoning from beginning to end. One of the criteria for issuing an immediate suspension pending the investigation is if there is incontrovertible or uncontrovertible evidence of malfeasance or wrongful conduct. And the court came to the conclusion that given the statements that Giuliani made, there was uncontrovertible or uncontroverted evidence to warrant not a suspension on the merits of the complaint, but interim, until they complete the full investigation and the full hearing on the complaint itself. And those statements consisted of statements challenging the legitimacy and outcome of the 2020 election. Just bear that in mind, that they have already come to the conclusion that the evidence is uncontroverted to the point where a temporary suspension is warranted. And one of the issues, or one of the criteria in terms of issuing a suspension, is that, to allow the attorney to continue practicing would be a risk to the profession. So imagine that they are using statements that Giuliani made before court and publicly during the contesting of the election in 2020 as evidence that he poses an immediate threat to the practice of law currently. Agree or disagree with it, I disagree with it, and I think that this is the worst thing that you can have with the ethics and the certification process, is a weaponizing of the ethics process, a weaponizing of the licensing process by entities which become politicized and used for political purposes. A few lawyers online can tell you how the recourse that people go to reflexively when they disagree with a lawyer, when they don't like what a lawyer said, when they take issue with a lawyer's position, straight to the bar. File a complaint, because what can be more damaging to an attorney than revoking their license to practice? And this is cancel culture meets the practice of law. If you don't like what someone said, cancel them, take their job, ruin their livelihood, destroy them, silence them. And that is effectively what's going on here. We are talking about Giuliani, who I understand people don't like Giuliani. I have taken issue with some of the things he said in the context of challenging the 2020 elections. I said these things were unsubstantiated at times and exaggerated at times, and potentially things that even if you believe, you shouldn't necessarily say publicly because it will serve no good other than in the court of public opinion, but not in the court of law. But to think that Giuliani's conduct warrants an immediate and interim suspension of his law license you have to adhere to a different form of threat, urgency, and uncontroverted evidence to warrant that highest of the sanctions, because the court said this is basically the highest of the sanctions, to suspend a license pending the investigation, but they found it justified. I'll link that judgment in the pinned comment so you can read it. I can't really do my editing now because we have no electricity, so I have to shoot this off my phone. But the court basically had the foregone conclusion they were going to sanction, basically condone, approve the immediate suspension of Giuliani for things he said while representing the campaign and challenging the election results. And you want to talk about weaponizing the judicial and the ethics process. That's an immediate threat to the practice of a law. That's stain on the practice of law that warrants suspending a license. And, you know, then you have that infamous lawyer in the FBI FISA court, Kleinsmith, who admitted to having falsified a document that was submitted to the secret court to obtain a secret warrant against, it's Carter Page, Michael Flynn, one of the two. You have a lawyer admitting to having falsified documents that were submitted to court to obtain a secret warrant. And as far as I know, not only did that attorney not get any meaningful punishment, as far as I can tell, there have been no ethics sanctions or complaints even against him. This is weaponizing of the judicial process. This is weaponizing of the ethics process. This is motivated reasoning, cancel culture, hitting the most sacred institutions that we have. We'll see where it goes. I mean, I don't even know how active Giuliani's practice was before this. As far as I knew or understood, effectively he came back to represent Trump and was not maintaining an active practice that this is even going to really affect. But the impact on Giuliani as an individual is not what's relevant here. It's the impact of this decision and this process and this mentality on the practice of law at large. And you're going to sanction a lawyer for having made false statements to court? There's a difference between making false statements to court because they don't pan out in evidence or because they can't be substantiated in evidence, and lying to courts. Making knowingly false statements to court, fabricating evidence, etc., etc. But if we're going to get into the realm now of sanctioning attorneys for having made statements to court in cases that they lose, those will be very easily to be qualified as false statements whenever anybody wants to weaponize someone having lost a case. And now we're going to have other courts, other judges relitigating cases to determine whether or not the attorneys in those files made false statements to other judges in other court files. We are entering a realm where the practice of law is going to be dangerous depending on your political leanings, your political ideologies, and your clients. And people think this is a good idea because everyone hates Giuliani and they want to make an example of anybody who dared say anything to challenge the 2020 elections. The buck doesn't stop here. The slippery slope does not stop here. This is only going to be a matter of the revolution eating itself. And when they're done eating the likes of Giuliani, they're going to come after other people for similar reasons in different contexts. You don't open this can of worms. And this can of worms is being opened and approved of by the higher levels of court. So with any luck, I don't know where this goes from here, but I will be discussing it with Robert Barnes on Sunday during our live stream. But with any luck, if this can get overturned or undone, it does at a higher level. But this is a dangerous precedent that is just the next step up from doxing attorneys who represent clients you don't like, to harassing those attorneys, to harassing those law firms, to intimidate them out of representing clients. Now we're going after the lawyers themselves and their very license for statements they make in the context of active litigation and active representation. It's not a world I would want to be a part of. So it is a world that I'm going to have to be a part of trying to change. With that said, if you like my videos, you like my content, please be sure to like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and drop a comment in the comment section below because it feeds the algorithm. Robert Barnes, live streams every Sunday, live streams with a guest every Wednesday called The Sidebar. You can support the channel, yada, yada, yada. All of our stuff is also on Rumble. And if you want to support us on Locals, vivabarneslaw.locals.com. Peace. And in putting this video together afterwards, I took a look at myself and now fully appreciate just how dirty Winston got me during that video. When the tide goes out here, it reveals not only the beautiful backdrop and seagrass and goes out all the way out there, it reveals this wonderful silty soot, which is extremely fine and doesn't always come out of clothing. And I think all of the kids have also found the dirty silt.